The date is May 2nd, 2019. The time is 14:54. Present in the Internal Affairs Division office is Nick Tayler, his representative from SPOA, Mick Boyd, Sergeant Ryan Bullard, and myself, Sergeant Don Schumacher. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct an interview of Officer Nicholas Tayler, who is an employee with the Sacramento Police Department in the capacity of police officer. This is an administrative investigation on the charge of neglect of duty and improper tactics involving officers Jarrett Robinette and Terrence McDowell. This is an administrative investigation only on these charges. Do you understand that?
I do.
However, since the allegations indicate that a crime may have been committed, I am advising you that 1. You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that?
I do.
2. Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand that?
I do.
3. You have the right to the presence of an attorney before and during any questioning. Do you understand that?
I do.
4. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you free of charge before any questioning if you desire. Do you understand that?
I do.
Do you understand each of these rights that I have explained to you?
Yes, sir.
Having these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to us now?
No.
Although you have the right to remain silent and to not incriminate yourself, your silence can be deemed insubordination and result in administrative discipline. Do you understand that based upon the authority vested in me by the Chief of Police, I am ordering you to answer all of these questions?
Yes, I do.
Any statement made under compulsion of a threat of discipline cannot be used against you in later criminal proceedings. However, if you do not answer our questions truthfully and fully, a charge of insubordination may be imposed, which could result in discipline up to and including termination. Do you understand this is only an administrative investigation?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand the allegations?
I do.
Do you understand that I'm ordering you to answer our questions, and that if you do not answer them truthfully and fully, it could result in disciplinary action up to and including termination?
Yes.
For the record, please state and spell your name.
First name Nicholas, Nicholas. Last name Tayler, Tayler.
Did you graduate from the Sacramento Police Academy?
I did.
When did you graduate?
December 2013.
Do you have any prior law enforcement experience?
I do not.
Did you have any kind of specialized training or assignment at this, scratch that question. Doesn't apply here. What is your current assignment and shift?
Currently patrol in the South area, FTO on Team 28 shift.
And how long have you been in your current assignment?
Approximately 5 months.
What was your assignment and shift in March of 2018?
I was attached to the South Gang Enforcement Team on the ShotSpotter team.
Have you had any kind of specialized training or assignment with the Sacramento Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. Could you summarize some of those for me?
Just the assignment. I was on the special team with South Gang Enforcement. Our duties were to proactively patrol known gang areas and attempt to prevent gun and gang violence and investigate gun and shooting related crimes.
Okay. Prior to this interview, I provided you and your representative with your body-worn camera footage from March 18, 2018 relating to CAD call 18-82449, a video recording of your interview with homicide detectives on October 10, 2018 related to SPD case 18-82449, your statement and observations relating to SPD case 18-82449, a CAD call printout for call 18-82449, an audio recording of radio traffic relating to SPD CAD call 18-82449, a transcription of the radio traffic relating to SPD CAD 18-82449, an aerial photo of 29th Street from SPD case 18-82449, a copy of your post-training record, a 2018 SPD CPT First Aid CPR Update Course Outline, General Order 580.12, revision date 10/9/2012, General Order 522.02, revision date 5/16 of 2017, and General Order 525.07, revision date 4/26 of 2017. Have you had a chance to review these for the record? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Have you had a chance to review these?
Yes, I have.
For the record, these general orders were the current policies in place March 18th of 2018. We're here to conduct an administrative interview with you regarding SPD case 18-82449, an officer-involved shooting which you were involved in on March 18th, 2018. Do you have any questions at all before we begin?
Not yet.
Okay. Prior to our interview here, have you read or reviewed any materials pertaining to this case, 18-82449? Reports, press releases, statements, video, etc.?
Yes.
And what would those be?
I read my observations and I reviewed my body-worn camera the night of the incident, and also during my interview with DOJ.
Okay. And aside from the materials that you were provided here, is there any other material, video, press releases, or anything that you have read, watched, reviewed, or anything like that prior to our interview here today?
Yeah, I mean, I've followed up on press releases and stuff as they've come out related to this incident.
Okay.
And, between now and when it occurred.
Any further reports outside of your observations or statement or anything like that that you were...
No further reports, no.
Okay. Have you received training in emergency first aid and CPR?
I have.
And specifically, what kind of training?
When, why, and how to conduct CPR given the circumstances. General first aid, combat first aid, stuff related to that.
Okay. And was your last training on this prior to March 18, 2018, was your last training for the CPR update on February 26, 2018?
Yes, it was.
Have you attended department training that talks about cover and concealment?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain what that is?
Cover is something that would afford you the ability to be behind and prevent rounds or specifically firearm bullets from hitting you. Concealment meaning you're not necessarily in the view of a suspect. However, concealment doesn't prevent you from getting hit with any projectiles.
As a police officer, especially working patrol, how often would you utilize cover and concealment?
Sometimes daily.
Did you ever take a course about containment and perimeters?
Yes.
Can you explain what training that was?
Yeah, I can't think specifically what the course was if it was related to it, but the academy would talk about perimeters, and I'm assuming some of these CPR updates, I couldn't give you the exact date. But we're taught to establish a perimeter to contain a scene when necessary and possible.
Okay. Have you been trained the concepts of contact arrest teams?
Yes.
And can you explain what that is?
Contact arrest team would be a group of officers with specific duties at the time in order to contact and safely detain a suspect.
Have you been trained in concepts of cover officers?
I have.
Can you explain what that would be?
Usually cover officer in lots of different instances. Sometimes we'll have an officer specifically assigned to, go hands-on to put somebody in cuffs. You'll have somebody else that's going to be covering them and preventing, watching out for their safety while they're doing what they're doing.
Are the use of contact teams and cover officers a common practice in police work?
Yes.
And that's for officer safety reasons, is that correct?
Correct. As well as the safety of suspects.
Have you received training relating to tactics and strategies for armed suspects?
Yes.
Okay. Have you utilized those tactics and strategies throughout your career?
Yes.
Is distance a key factor for officer safety?
It can be, yes.
And can you elaborate just a little bit on that?
Distance in relation to somebody who's been hostile or about to launch some sort of an attack. It gives you that time to react, number one, and then also time to seek cover if possible, if the need arises. Distance also makes it harder for people to aim if the incident involves a shooting or a firearm-related crime.
Have you been involved in any officer-involved shootings other than this case?
I have not.
Would you agree that all SAC PD officers have been trained and have some of the experience in areas that we've talked about here?
I would.
Referring to your observations written by you in relation to this case, did you review any video, whether body-worn camera or any other kind of video, prior to writing and submitting your observations?
Yeah, I reviewed mine prior to my observations.
Your body-worn camera?
Correct.
And referring to your statement that you had given the homicide investigators on October 10th, 2018, do you remember what videos you were allowed to watch prior to your interview with homicide detectives?
As far as I recall, it was just mine. My body-worn camera.
What type of equipment did you carry with you on the date of the shooting?
Firearm, additional magazines, handcuffs, pepper spray, gloves, sanitary wipes, notepads, pens, radio, body-worn camera.
And did you have your body-worn, department-issued body-worn camera equipped at the time?
I did.
And to your knowledge, was all of your equipment, including your body-worn camera, functioning properly at the beginning of your shift on March 18, 2018?
It was.
Okay. Were you on duty March 18, 2018 at 9:26 p.m.?
Yes.
And what was your gang or your identifier?
Gang 5-7.
Did you have a partner that you were working with?
I did.
And who was that?
Officer Trujillo.
Okay, as a gang unit, what were your responsibilities for your shift and assignment at that time?
Respond to shot spotter calls, shooting investigations, proactively patrol known gang areas. Ultimate goal is to prevent gun and gang violence.
What hours did you typically work as a gang unit?
That time would have been roughly 5 p.m. to 3 a.m.
On this date, on March 18, 2018, were you driving an all-black SPD patrol vehicle equipped with emergency lights?
I was.
Were you in full SPD uniform?
I was in a modified uniform with cargo pants and a Sacramento Police Department vest equipped with patches and badge.
Can you fully kind of describe that uniform as far as lettering, number, or any of that would be visible for anybody to identify?
Yes. So I wore a vest which had police written in large gold letters front and back. It was also equipped with my Sacramento Police Department embroidered badge, as well as our Sacramento Police Department patch.
And was your partner, Officer Trujillo, dressed in the same manner that you're describing how you were?
She was.
Okay. Officer Trujillo, was she the passenger in your vehicle at this time?
Yes, she was.
On March 18th, 2018, 21:26 hours, did you respond to a call for service in the area of 29th Street regarding a car cloud or car burglary which had resulted in an officer-involved shooting?
Yes.
Did you respond code 3?
Yes, I did.
Where did you respond from?
Roughly in the area of Franklin and Florin. So it would have been... I'd made a U-turn to drive towards that direction once I heard about the call. We made the U-turn north of Florin on Franklin. And then as things progressed, we continued towards the scene.
Can you summarize the information about the call that you knew at that time when you were responding?
Yeah, so something about a car burglary, like a car clout in the area of 29th Street. So I guess officers had been dispatched, and so we were just monitoring the radio at that point. And at some point, I guess somebody broadcast that he's still on scene, the suspect that is. And so since we have a crime in progress, we kind of responded to the area to assist. That's why I made a U-turn initially to respond to that area. And then there was traffic that the suspect was fleeing on foot. So I responded code 3 to the scene.
Okay. An SSD Air Unit Star responded to this call as well, is that correct?
Correct.
To your knowledge, was Star on scene for this call prior to your arrival?
Yes, they were.
Do you recall any information that Star had broadcasted regarding this call prior to your arrival?
Yes, I do.
Is there any of that information you can summarize at all that you remember?
Yeah, so Star got on scene. They had broadcasted that the suspect involved was breaking a window at a residence, and he had previously previously been seen in the area of where the call had originated. They broadcasted what he was running, to my knowledge, and then they broadcasted information after the shooting itself took place.
Can you describe some of the things that you were considering or thinking about during your response to this call?
Yeah, after was radio traffic indicated that shots had been fired, my concern was getting to the scene as quickly as possible to assist, make sure everything was safe for the officers and the suspect.
At 21:31 hours, you and Officer Trujillo arrived on scene for this call. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd have to just look at the laws just to confirm. It said 21:31. Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you actually respond to 29th Street as opposed to
Yes.
29th Street was the actual location of the officer involved shooting to your knowledge at that time? Is that correct?
Yeah, so let me clarify, I guess. So as we're arriving on scene, I didn't know the exact numbers of that house at the time because their cars were parked in a different location, and it was apparent that the suspect fled on foot, so I wasn't exactly sure. So I had clarified via the radio for Star, and they gave me a white light for the actual house itself. Regarding at the time that I didn't know what the actual numbers were on the house.
Okay. Okay, then we're going to review or refer to your body cam footage here. Let me get this at the beginning. Okay, your body cam footage on this call, date time stamped, labeled as 2018-03-19 and T0426 and 01Z for Zulu time. So I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna fast forward here real quick.
Keep going. Keep going to the south. Two-story house. Keep going to the south. Keep going south. Keep going. Keep going. Two more houses. Right where my light's at. Right there. They're in that backyard.
Everybody good? Everybody good?
Okay, so at 04:28:59, you and Officer Trujillo appear to join Officers Robinette and Merkel in the backyard of 29th Street after your Code 3 response, correct?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge at this point, Officers Robinette and Merkel had just been involved in a shooting, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, 4:29:02, you appear to view in the southern direction of the backyard of 29th Street with your handgun drawn, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what you saw at that time?
Yes, I male black subject with the dark clothing. He appeared to be laying face down with his head generally facing west. His right arm was visible. His right hand appeared to be concealed partially by his head or upward near his head. And I was unable to see his left arm.
Okay. And on page 1 of your observations that you had written on the 5th paragraph down, you had described, I maneuvered to the right of Officer Mercadal and observed the male black adult suspect lying face down with his head generally facing westbound. He was wearing a black sweatshirt and black or dark colored pants. His right arm was positioned upward near his head and neck area, and his right hand was partially concealed from my view. I was unable to see where the subject's left hand was or if he was in possession of any weapons. The subject was not moving from the time I first observed him. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. And at this point, too, it almost sounded. Did you ask? Did he have a gun? Is that correct?
Yeah, I said something about where's the gun or did he have a gun?
Okay. And do you recall what Officers Robinette or Mercadal had told you or replied to you at all?
Not
I can
exactly.
We can just play it back.
Play it. Get the gun.
We don't hear you. We're not moving in until we have one.
So at that point, it sounds like there was additional communication between him and somebody else. I don't know if what Robinette was saying was a direct answer to what I was saying. I don't think I necessarily got a clear answer at that point.
Okay.
We don't have it. Do you see it there? I don't see it. You guys moved it on.
So at that point, Mercadal is like, I don't have it in my mind. I'm trying to see where the gun is.
referencing that he doesn't have the gun.
He doesn't. Well, my opinion of this is that he doesn't like see it. I don't have it. I'm not tracking it. I don't see where it's at. So we don't know where it is.
Okay.
What's
Right now,
you want to get it detained?
Now, at 429:23 here, what did you ask or say right here?
I asked if you wanted to get him detained.
Get him detained. Okay.
not yet.
Okay. All right.
And what did Officer Robinette reply to you there?
Not yet.
And based on what you had observed and knew at this time, would it be accurate that you were of the understanding that the downed suspect you saw had been shot by officers and had not moved?
That was my understanding. Yes.
Can you explain why you asked that at that time about getting the suspect detained?
Why at that time in particular? We had 4 people on scene at that point, so I don't know what their thoughts. I want to know what their thoughts about going in and getting them detained to make the scene safe and start rendering any care that is necessary.
Did you feel it was safe enough to do that based on what you had observed and what you knew?
I wasn't sure. That's why I posed the question. So I wasn't there for the incident. I don't know if where the suspect was in the backyard when he first observed the firearm. Given the fact at this point that we don't know where the firearm is and we can't see where both of his hands are, that's why I posed the question.
Were you aware at the time about what kind of crime the downed suspect may have committed, or if he was arrestable for anything at that time?
Related to the call and the prior to the incident, the shooting incident.
This incident in particular, up to this point here, did you have any knowledge of any specifics as far as anything that the suspect would be arrestable for, or any kind of crime he had committed at all?
I don't think it was established that he was arrestable for anything at that time that I know of.
You're simply basing that on what you heard over the radio, or
Yeah, correct.
limited information?
Yeah.
Would that be safe to say?
Correct. Yeah. He's got one hand by his face.
So at 0429:30, what is it that you said right there?
He's got one hand by his face.
And what did you mean by that?
His right hand looked like was up near his head or face.
The suspect's?
Correct.
Did you see the hand, or just you knew it was up?
His arm was upward. I don't believe I could see the hand itself at that point.
Hey, can you hear us?
Police department, can you hear us?
So at 0429:48 here, you appear to call out to the downed suspect, "Police department, can you hear us?" Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain the reason for doing that?
Announcing our presence as police officers and trying to elicit some sort of response from the suspect.
We need to know if you're okay. We need to get you medics, but we can't go over there to get you help unless we know you don't have a weapon.
Hey, you guys, you good right here? I'm good here.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, I'm gonna go get the correct address real quick. I think Star put it out. Well, yeah, I called him. He put it out. Okay.
Sir, can you move? Can you hear us?
So at 4:30:22 here, can you tell what it is that Officer Trujillo asked Robinette here about the suspect?
She asked if he had moved.
And what is Officer Robinette's reply?
No, he had not.
That he had not moved.
Correct.
He came up and then he kind of approached us, hands out, and then he fell down.
At 04:30:28 here, what is it that Officer Mercadale said here?
That he approached us, hands out.
Okay. Would it be accurate? He came up, he kind of approached us with his hands out? Would
Yes.
that be accurate? Okay. Can you explain what that meant to you, what Officer Mercadale said?
Sounded like this, from my understanding, is that the suspect had extended his arms towards the officers and had moved towards them and approached them.
And
That's very faint. Let me try and play that again here real quick. Are you able to make out at all what Officer Trujillo saying that? It plays out a little. So at 4:30, 46 here with headphones on, it's a little easier. It sounds on my end. It sounded like she had said something to the effect of, "Let's have the next unit bring a non-lethal in case he's pretending, and just in case." Does that sound accurate at all?
Yeah, I recall at some point in the conversation that was said. I just can't tell if it's right here.
Okay. And referring to a non-lethal, based on your training experience, what is a non-lethal?
Most of us have at least a non-lethal shotgun, which is a 12-gauge pump-action Remington equipped with rounds that fire a fin-stabilized, like beanbag projectile. It's used to, make a situation safe if necessary, and gain compliance in order to safely detain a suspect.
I provided you with General Order 580.12 less lethal weapon system, revision date 10/12 or 10/9 of 12. Would you please read aloud the highlighted portions?
Yes, policy. It should be the policy of the Sacramento Police Department to deploy and use less lethal weapon systems as instructed in department training in order to maximize the safety of all individuals involved in an incident. A definitions: 1. Flexible baton round beanbag, a less lethal 2 3/4 inch 12-gauge shotgun round firing a Kevlar bag containing 40 grams of lead shot at a velocity of 280 feet per second. The drag stabilized projectile delivers 112 foot-pounds of energy on impact. Flexible baton rounds are discharged from a dedicated 12-gauge shotgun that is distinguishable by an orange buttstock and foregrip. This round provides accurate and effective performance when fired from the approved distance of not less than 5 feet, but not more than 50 feet from the target. Second page. Deployment criteria. Less lethal weapon systems shall only be used in a manner that is consistent with department policy and training guidelines. Officers shall not deploy a less lethal weapon system unless specific information reasonably indicates the potential for the system's use. The circumstances of each incident shall dictate the reasonableness for the deployment. Use of less lethal weapons. Use of a less lethal weapon shall be consistent with General Order 580.02, use of force. Situations for use of less lethal weapon systems may include, but are not limited to, self-destructive, dangerous, and or combative individuals, circumstances where a tactical advantage can be obtained. Tactical considerations. If possible, a less lethal weapon system is to be utilized, if possible, when a less lethal weapon system is to be utilized, a sufficient number of officers should be assembled to assist with the physical custody of the targeted subject. The number of additional officers and the responsibilities shall be dictated by the dynamics of the incident. Unless extraordinary circumstances exist, consideration should be given to the following responsibilities. Deploying officer, at least one officer to discharge the less lethal weapon system. Multiple officers with less lethal weapon systems may be utilized in a single incident. The use of canine and the conducted energy device may also be appropriate in concert with less lethal weapon systems. Protection officers, a sufficient number of officers prepared to deliver appropriate force cover options given the immediate circumstances. Custody officers, a sufficient number of officers who are responsible for handcuffing and restraining these subjects. Under exigent circumstances, nothing in this order shall prohibit an officer from deploying and discharging a less lethal weapon without requesting authorization or having the presence of additional officers.
Okay, we're going to go back to your video here real quick.
You want to put that out when they're done?
Hey,
Go get a non-lethal.
go get
Oh,
another.
hey, sorry.
There's one in our car on the roof. There's a shotty.
043118 on your video, you say there's one in our car on the roof, there's a shoddy, correct?
Yes, sir.
What did you mean by this?
Our less lethal shotgun in that vehicle is mounted in a gun lock on the roof of the vehicle.
In referencing General Order 580.12 less lethal weapon system. Even though the less lethal shotgun was not actually deployed or used during this incident, it was considered. After reviewing the above general order, do you feel this incident on March 18, 2018 would have been a practical use for it at any point?
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Can you explain why?
Well, we're developing a contact team at this point, and gathering resources. So having somebody with a less lethal option during that contact may be appropriate. If this is a ruse and he's playing games and might be combative upon contact with him, it could be a force option.
And it appears that you, as well as other officers here, are staying at the northwest corner of 29th Street as opposed to going out in the open area of the backyard. Can you explain why that is?
Yeah, we're concerned at this point that, one, he had a firearm, and two, now we don't know where it is. We can't see both of his hands, so we're concerned for safety reasons, and just trying to stay behind as much cover and concealment as possible.
So I was going to ask you, would you consider this a position of cover?
Best option for cover that we had at the time.
And can you describe for me the setting of the backyard, what you perceived at that time, where this occurred as far as lighting, vegetation, obstructions, anything like that?
Yeah, it was dark back there. As far as I recall, there's zero lighting other than what we have on our equipment-wise. There's a patio cover south of where the suspect is lying, some sort of brick structure to the west of the suspect, and then grass, which was overgrown in the foreground between us and the suspect, providing some sort of a little bit of concealment.
And you may have kind of touched on it, but as far as the lighting, what was the lighting situation like in this backyard? Where was it?
As far as I can recall, it's completely dark, absent our lights.
Your flashlights?
Correct.
Okay. And at that time, did you have any concerns of the potential of additional suspects?
That's always a concern. The reason kind of why we're not moving to a different location at this point, and then why I'm looking around the yard with my flashlight on the initial approach. But as far as we know at this point, in my head, we only had information about one suspect that fled. I didn't have any more additional information.
Okay. Can you explain why an approach of the downed suspect at this point, with officers Robinette, Mercadal, Trujillo, and yourself on scene, had not been done?
Yeah, at this point we're worried about officer safety issues and the fact that we don't see where a weapon is, nor can we see both of his hands. So that was our main concern.
Do you recall any officers requesting a body bunker or ballistic shield during this?
Yes, somebody mentioned the shield in order to make our approach.
Okay, what is a body bunker or ballistic shield?
It's a shield which is generally clear that allows an officer to safely approach and is supposed to prevent the officer from being injured by handgun projectiles. It's supposed to protect them ballistically from that. So it offers some mode of cover for officers that's mobile and can go with us.
Okay, and this is probably a little bit redundant, but I'll just theoretically, would having a body bunker or ballistic shield assist officers in making a safe approach of an armed suspect?
Yes.
And this would be to protect our officers by shielding them from any gunfire that a suspect may potentially send downrange towards the officers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The helicopter air unit Star was on scene throughout the entirety of this incident. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall if it was considered by officers on scene in asking the air unit to actually visually verify if the suspect was still armed or a threat while you were waiting?
I don't believe it was discussed.
Okay. Do you feel the air unit could have realistically verified if the suspect was still armed or a threat, where as a result you could make a safe approach at that point?
I think based on where we are, we can. I think their view of the situation is probably they're not going to be able to say for sure whether they can see that, they know that information or not. So we're in much closer proximity. So
we'll go back to your body worn camera here.
Yeah.
We can't see his left hand.
43124 here. What does Officer Mercadal say here?
We can't see his left hand.
Can't see his left hand.
Correct.
What do you have on him? Like this?
Okay, 431, we'll say 32. Sergeant Morris, 3 Sam 5, has arrived on scene and asked what did he have on him, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was Sergeant Morris referring to in your opinion?
What was the type of weapon that he had on him?
The suspect?
The suspect, correct.
Something in his hands. It looked like he got his hands. What do you have on him? Like this. Something in his hands. It looked like he got him from off.
So 43135, Officer Robnett replies, like this, something in his hands, it looked like a gun from our perspective. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, sir.
Did you see Officer Robnett demonstrate anything when he was describing this?
I did not.
In your observations, you had indicated that Sergeant Morris arrived on scene at 21:31 hours in the backyard where you were, but per your observations, that would have been the same time that you and Officer Trujillo arrived on scene as per your observations.
Oh.
In reviewing your body-worn camera video, it's apparent Sergeant Morris arrives on scene after you both,
Correct.
which per the times in your body-worn camera is about a minute and a half after you. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, that sounds
Sergeant,
correct. As opposed to what's typed here.
Sergeant Morris did not arrive on scene at the same time as you and Officer Trujillo.
That's
is that
correct.
Okay.
You guys ready? Good? Let's go.
Okay, 0431-49, you appear to advance towards the downed suspect, who is later identified as Stephon Clark. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you recall if a decision was made by anyone as why to approach the suspect at this time?
In my mind, it was one, to make the scene safe and then provide medical care for the suspect. I don't know if that discussion was made, but in my mind, that's what everybody was under the same page regarding.
Have you been involved in or are you aware of any similar situations where law enforcement delayed their response for immediate rescue of a suspect that law enforcement had shot or injured?
I can't give you a specific example, but
Are you aware of any incidents, if you can't give specific examples, but are you aware of incidents in the past where anything like that may have occurred?
across the world and America, yeah, sure, absolutely.
So we kind of touched earlier, but was any kind of plan made just before your approach as to who would be lethal cover, who would be hands, or anything like that?
We didn't discuss it.
Okay. Did not discuss it?
No. If anybody else did, I'm not sure, but I didn't have that discussion with anyone.
Hey, when do you guys want to go hands cover them?
Okay, so at 0431, call it 56 here, Sergeant Morris appears to grab the suspect's left arm wrist area. And then you appear to grab the suspect's right arm and bring it around the suspect's neck. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Waistband?
So at 043206, you said waistband, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Sergeant Morris said, yeah, we need to start CPR. Is that correct?
Is that what you said? I missed that. I'm sorry.
I'll play it again.
Waistband?
Yes, that's what it sounds like. So.
Okay. All right. Did you take that as a direction from Sergeant Morris that you needed to conduct CPR on the suspect?
I don't know if I heard that at the time or not, to be honest with you. So I think it was kind of that was the understanding.
What? Waistband?
jump forward just a little bit here. At 043209, Sergeant Morris appears to voice over the radio, send fire in code 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
In the beginning of this, you appear to be patting down the suspect for weapons at first. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain why this is done?
To ensure that officers as well as the suspect are safe and that he's not in possession of any weapons that can harm us or himself.
On page 1 of your observations, you had written, I observed the suspect to have an injury to the right side chest torso area that was bleeding, and the suspect was not breathing and had no detectable carotid pulse. Is that correct?
Correct.
To the best of your understanding, the suspect had been struck by officers' gunfire. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any kind of emergency medical kit on your person at that time?
Not on my person. Light.
432-19, you say light here. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And why are you saying that?
My intention was to start CPR, and I wanted somebody to provide me with light to do that.
So would the light help you as far as conducting CPR? Would it make it more easier visually for you to conduct that?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Give me a light. We'll start CPR.
All right.
At 432-28 here, you appear to put on some rubber gloves. You ask for a light again, and you say, we'll start CPR. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who were you talking to?
I don't know who specifically was there at that time.
Okay.
Hey, man.
So 432-33, you say, hey, man. Is that correct?
Yes.
And why are you saying that?
Try to elicit a response from the suspect. Just shine me a light.
We're gonna need CPR stuff.
Now, at 432-47, someone says we're going to need CPR stuff. Do you recall who said that?
I don't know who that was. Come on.
That's my light.
432-54, someone says you want to go get your mask, and another officer says mask. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And what does that mean?
Referring to the CPR mask that covers the suspect's mouth and nose area to protect the officer from blood and vomit or whatever other bodily fluids is between him and the suspect.
Okay. Do you recall who said any of that as far
I
as with
can't
the mask?
tell, and I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Back up just a second.
That's my light.
Just going back about a second, actually, 0432-54, you appear to be giving CPR chest compressions to suspect Clark, who was on the ground facing up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Based on the injuries that you had observed to the suspect or you were aware of, would it have been practical for you to assess for the application of tourniquets, bandages, direct pressure wounds, while also conducting CPR chest compressions?
Yeah, it could have been. I saw the one chest injury, and I didn't have any supplies with me. So, at this point, I was giving him the best care I could before additional supplies arrived.
The best care being the chest compressions.
Correct. Come on, buddy. Wake up, breathe for me.
So 433-14, you say, come on, buddy, wake up, breathe for me, correct?
Yes, sir.
And is that directed towards the suspect at that time?
It is.
so I know it's kind of hard to see here. But at 4:33:22, it looks like that you resumed your chest compressions of the suspect.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Come on, bud.
So 4:33:40 here, you call out again. You say, "Come on, bud," to the suspect. Is that correct?
Yes.
And to clarify, is this you calling out to the suspect in hopes of him in some way recovering or waking up as a stimulus?
Yes, sir.
At 4:33:54, you appear to continue giving chest compressions. Is that right?
Yes.
Come on, bud.
And at 4:34:12, you call out, "Come on, bud," again, correct?
Yes. So
4:34:19 said something, "No pulse." Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Officer Trujillo asked you, "No pulse, he's not breathing,"
Yes.
and you replied, "No."
Correct.
And what's the reason for that kind of communication between you and Officer Trujillo there?
Kind of deciding factor between continuing CPR or not. If he's got a pulse now all of a sudden because our treatment has worked, then chest compressions do not resume.
You want to trade off compressions?
Good.
4:34:23, an officer asks you want to trade compressions, and you reply, "I'm good." Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall who asked you that?
I don't. It just sounds like it might have been Officer Lundgren.
Lundgren?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Well, I'm not sure.
what did you understand that question to mean about trading compressions?
Just because the physical exertion required to give CPR, I just wanted to know if we should switch out so that he can do them and give me a break or whatever.
No. You want to trade off compressions?
Good.
So 4:34:22, you continue your chest compressions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sorry, this video's not working for my timer.
You want to trade off compressions?
Good.
Are you able to make out at all what Officer Trujillo is saying?
I can't tell.
You've got gloves on already. Can you put that on his face, please? Does that sound accurate at all?
Yeah, very well could have been.
Okay. Zero 4:34:28. Looks like someone puts a rescue mask over the suspect's face. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you recall which officer that was?
I think it was Officer Lundgren, but I can't say for sure.
And for the record, what's a rescue or resuscitation mask? What is that?
The mask, as I described before, that we carry, a CPR mask. It's got a one-way valve to, or a barrier to prevent vomit or blood or body fluids contaminating the officer giving the treatment.
Okay. Do you recall where your rescue mask was at that time at all?
Yeah, it would have been in my patrol bag in my vehicle.
Come on, buddy.
04:34:37, Officer Trujillo calls out, "Come on, buddy." Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Good.
You want me to switch? Yeah. Okay. Can I get another one?
04:34:43, you appear to pause here and Trujillo says, come on. And then you appear to ask, good. And then Officer Trujillo appears to ask something, you want me to switch. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Statement would have been struck, but there is one structure on that property. Laid on that okay? Let's just get an officer over there. Statement would have been struck, but there is one structure on that property. Laid on that okay? Let's just get an officer over there.
Hang on here.
Statement would have been struck, but there is one structure on that property. Laid on that okay? Let's just get an officer over there.
I'm good.
Hang on a second. At some point, do you notice Officer Lundgren's giving rescue breaths to
Yes.
the suspect?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell at all if the suspect's chest was rising at all as a result of those rescue breaths?
I couldn't tell.
Are we doing on time? Do you guys want to take a break? Or do you guys want to keep going?
All right.
See,
Laid on that okay? Let's just get an officer over there.
I'm good. Ready?
The 0434, 53 hours, or 53 there, you appear to continue your chest compressions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Come on, buddy.
Thirty.
0435, 10, you voice 30. Is that correct?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Indicating to the officer, given the next set of breaths, that I had completed my compressions, which is 30.
And Officer Lundgren appears here to lower and give rescue breaths to the suspect. And is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Come on, buddy.
043518, you continue your chest compressions, correct?
Yes, sir.
Fire!
So 043536, you pause again and say 30, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start from this point here.
30. Fire! Go!
2 breaths.
So 43538, an officer calls out fire, and then someone says yeah, and an officer says let's go. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what happened there, or what that exchange was?
It sounded like fire was making their way into the backyard, and he was trying to get them to hurry up to resume medical care.
Okay. That fire. The
fire
hurry up fire.
Yeah.
Fire! Go!
2 breaths.
And again, you said 2 breaths, is that correct?
Yes,
And Officer Lundgren then gives the rescue breaths. Is that accurate?
that's correct.
You guys just got one?
Yeah, just one.
0435 46, a medic or fireman asks, you guys just got one, and Officer Trujillo replies, yeah, just one. Is that correct?
Yes.
What did that exchange mean, to the best of your understanding?
And my understanding is that they're asking how many people we had needed medical care. Just one. And she responds with yes, just one.
One?
Yeah, just one.
So 0435 45, you continue your chest compressions, correct?
Yes.
Cut his shirt off and get him
A fireman, sounds like he says, let's cut his shirt off, get him on the monitor, and another fireman or medic says, we've got a shooting. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Good.
Do you know where he's hit?
Somewhere in the chest. Yeah, he's touched.
043558 here. You appear to pause, you say good, and then a fireman or medic asks, you even know where he's hit, and you replied, somewhere in the chest. Yeah, he's cut. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Here, Peter, hold your light. I got shears in my pocket.
You want me to take the cuffs off first?
No.
043603, you asked, you guys want me to take the cuffs off first, is that correct?
Yes.
And one of the medics replies no.
Correct.
And did you mean take the handcuffs off the suspect at that time?
Yes, sir.
And why did you ask that at that time?
It would help them render more care, or it would help them in rendering care for the suspect.
Now, you stood up at this point and fire and medics began to cut off the suspect's clothing, is that correct?
Yes.
On page 2 of your observations, you indicated that after medics cut off the suspect's clothing to expose the chest area, you observed a bullet projectile near the left side of the suspect's torso under the clothing, is that correct?
Yes.
At what point did you feel that the fire medics had taken over medical responsibility of the suspect from you?
Just prior to me standing up.
Just prior to you standing up? Fire and medics pronounced the suspect deceased, is that correct?
Yes.
For the record, in reviewing body-worn camera footage, approximately 4 minutes and 57 seconds elapsed between when officers' gunfire ceased to the point officers first made physical contact with the suspect, Stephon Clark. Approximately 59 seconds after that, you began CPR on Clark. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
I provided you General Order 522.02, emergency care for individuals under police care or control, revision date 5/16/2017. Would you please read aloud the highlighted portions of policy and section A, 1 and 2?
Yes. It shall be the policy of the Sacramento Police Department to provide emergency medical treatment to individuals under police care or control while ensuring their safety and that of others during treatment. Procedure A, emergency medical treatment. 1, officers having any doubt concerning a person's condition shall request emergency medical assistance, and 2, officers shall provide first aid to injured parties if it can be done safely.
Thank you. May I see that? In your opinion, when was the suspect under police care and control as stated in 522.02?
As soon as we detain him.
Would that be as soon as physical contact was made with him?
Physical
As soon
contact
as,
with the suspect. Correct.
okay. And why would it be at that time? Why, in your opinion?
At that point, we determined that the scene was safe enough in order to render medical care, and he was now in our care and custody.
In your opinion, do you feel you were able to provide first aid to the suspect safely, as stated in section A, subsection 2, any sooner than when you made your eventual approach of the downed suspect?
Given the circumstances, no.
Why?
Due to us not knowing what his actual condition was, where the firearm in this case was, not being able to see his hands, we needed to be able to establish a contact team with necessary resources like the shield and enough bodies to safely approach and detain him.
Would it have been reasonable to direct fire and medics to enter the scene and medically treat the suspect prior to officers safely securing the scene and arresting or detaining the suspect?
No, it would not.
Why?
We have to fire stage until we are able to make a scene safe. Otherwise, it's not going to be safe for them.
In your opinion, do you feel it was reasonable for officers to delay their approach of the suspect for the amount of time that they did?
Yes.
As we alluded to earlier, and as you know, the individual who died as a result of this officer-involved shooting was Stephon Clark. Did you know Stephon Clark prior to this incident?
Did not.
To your knowledge, had you ever had any interactions or dealings with Stephon Clark prior to this incident?
I had not.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit here.
with him kind of wrapped up in his clothing.
Okay.
So I was just looking for Sam 5.
One
He's right here. I got him.
Are you the one you cleared support?
Yes.
You are?
At 044212, you appear to mute your body-worn camera here, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall the reasoning for that at that time?
I was going to have a discussion with the sergeant and whoever else was over there.
I'm sorry,
I was going to have a discussion with Sam 5,
Sergeant Morris.
Sergeant Morris.
At 0445 and 31, you unmute or reactivate the audio of your body-worn camera at this point. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Two. Hey guys, we're gonna back everybody up.
044553, you appear to contact a group of citizens here, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you recall the reasoning why you unmuted your body-worn camera, or reactivated the audio for it at that time?
Yeah, so I felt that our scene, or our perimeter here was too close to the scene, so I wanted to back everything up. And obviously I was going to have to contact the public in order to do that, so that's why I unmuted my body-worn camera.
Fast forward just a little bit here.
I know we've checked now.
Fine, I just have the phone with her.
Yeah. So I just want to like.
Okay.
Wait. In terms of the folks.
045350, you appear to mute your body cam again here, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, the reasoning for that you can recall?
You had a discussion with, I think that's Sergeant Park.
Okay. And then at 0403, or I'm sorry, 0503 and 43, you deactivate your body-worn camera, correct?
Yes.
And you recall the reason for that at that time at all?
Whoever the watch commander was at the time, I think broadcasted via the radio that everyone was to turn them off.
Was it Lieutenant Cybulski?
That was, yes.
I provided you with General Order 525.07, revision date 4/26/2017, body-worn camera. Would you please read aloud the highlighted portions?
Yes. Policy. Shall be the policy of the Sacramento Police Department to utilize a body-worn camera in a manner that will assist in criminal prosecutions or civil litigation by providing a recording of the incident that may supplement an employee's report and help document professional police conduct. All officers issued a body-worn camera are required to wear and use their body-worn cameras while working in uniform. A uniform is to be considered the standard uniform as well as any apparel, e.g. tactical raid vests, that identifies the wearer as a police officer. Body-worn camera video provides additional information regarding an investigative or enforcement contact with a member of the public. As body-worn camera recordings provide only a limited perspective of the encounter, all other available evidence, such as witness statements, officer interviews, forensic analysis, and documentary evidence shall be considered before any conclusions are reached. Body-worn cameras should assist in the following. A says documenting an initial police response. I'm going to move down. Employee responsibility. Number 2 says employees assigned a body-worn camera shall. You want to read those?
Just the highlighted ones, please.
Oh, there it is. C, affix their issued body-worn cameras to the uniforms at the beginning of their shift in accordance with training and the manufacturer's guidelines. The body-worn camera shall be worn for the entire shift. Required activation of the body-worn camera. This policy is not intended to describe every possible situation in which the body-worn camera should be utilized. Not all situations will clearly start out as necessitating the activation of the body-worn camera, nor will all events have a clear ending when the body-worn camera is no longer necessary. Employees shall activate their body-worn cameras during any enforcement or investigative activity, whether self-initiated or in response to a dispatched call. Examples include, but are not limited to, the following. When conducting pedestrian and vehicle contacts, while responding to any in progress, just occurred, or any other call for service in which the fleeing suspect and/or vehicles may be captured leaving the scene, the crime scene. When responding to calls reportedly involving weapons or violence, when pursuing a suspect on foot. During Code 3 responses, including vehicle pursuits, regardless of whether the vehicle is equipped with an in-car camera system. While executing into searches of individuals, vehicles, buildings, and other places. When conducting arrests, detentions, and/or citations. Deactivation of the body-worn camera. Except as listed below, once activated, officers shall not deactivate their body-worn cameras until the investigative or enforcement activity involving a member of the public has reasonably concluded. If enforcement or investigative activity with a member of the public resumes, the officer shall reactivate the body-worn camera and continue recording. Employees may deactivate the body-worn camera at any time based on their discretion in the following circumstances. A, when an employee is discussing tactical or confidential information with other law enforcement personnel during briefings or during conversations with confidential informants. When it is necessary to discuss issues or concerns with an employee, supervisor, doctor, nurse, or paramedic in private, or details regarding the reason of deactivation should be recorded and documented when appropriate.
Good. Are you aware of any verbiage in this policy that addressed muting your body-worn camera?
I am not.
After reviewing that, in your opinion, do you feel you complied with that policy?
I do.
Or why?
It was activated from the moment of my Code 3 response to the scene until I was instructed to turn it off by my watch commander.
Sergeant Schumacher.
Just a few. Given all the information you had at the time, when you responded to the scene, you got to the corner there where the other officers were, was there reasonable suspicion to detain that individual for further investigation of criminal conduct?
Absolutely.
Sergeant Bullard already asked this, but I'm going to rephrase it just a little bit different. Are you aware of the training experience, any incident where an officer has been either injured or maybe even shot as they've approached an individual who they believe was either incapacitated or possibly injured?
I don't know that I can cite a specific example, but based on my training and things that I've been told and scenarios which have unfolded, yes, certainly that's a possibility.
Going back to, we don't have to review it, but going back to 043226 on the video when you're applying some latex gloves, are those standard issue gloves that the department provides you?
They are.
And what's the reason for that?
Contamination from the suspect to me and myself and the suspect to prevent that.
In your experience with dealing with other medical professionals, paramedics, maybe doctors in the ER, is it common practice for people to don latex gloves before administering any type of medical care to an individual?
Absolutely.
So including anything minor from maybe caring for an abrasion up to something very critical such as CPR?
Yes, sir.
In your experience working with fire and when they're responding to medical emergencies in conjunction with an investigation, even if requested, will they enter a scene and provide medical attention or anything for that matter if they feel the scene is possibly a threat to their safety?
No, they will not.
Do you have anything to add regarding this incident at all that we haven't covered, or anything that?
Not at this time.
Is there anything else related to this matter which we have not covered that needs to be added, clarified, or changed? If so, I'm ordering you to provide that information right now.
None that I can think of.
After you leave this interview, should you remember anything that is different from or in addition to the information that you have given today, I'm ordering you to contact Sergeant Bullard immediately. I'm also ordering you to not discuss this matter with any other department employee. Do you understand these orders?
Understood?
Any interview at 16:04 hours.